Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of contemporary romance and kick-butt heroines and dark fantasy worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking to New York Times and USA Today best-selling author with over 80 books written and two Hallmark movies under their belt. Known for the series such as the Donovan Series and the Montgomery Brothers, we are talking to the one and only Samantha Chase. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm fabulous now that you're here because there are so many questions I want to ask you. And you've just recently had another Hallmark movie, a second Hallmark movie come out. That's so exciting.
It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Like, I still am a little bit like, oh my gosh, look at that. It's happening. But I don't know if there's going to be a third because of the writer's strike going on in Hollywood right now, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can get a third one.
Do you know what? I think we will, and I can't wait to dive into this topic because I'm like, oh, yay. I love a good Hallmark, so I can't wait to see what the behind the scenes were for you as well as an author. So we will go back to the start though, as to where you started your writing career, why, and how you found publishing for the first time.
Oh my goodness. I This was something that I wanted to do since, like, I don't know, like high school. I would have to say that I had a love of reading romance. I love writing, and I just really wanted this to be a career. But I didn't pursue it. Like, it was a dream. It was just something that was sort of like, yeah, in a perfect world, I could do this. But, I got married young, I had kids, and life just, took me on another path for a really long time. But my older son, I homeschooled him starting in the fourth grade. Okay. And we were part of this huge homeschool co op, and all the moms had to volunteer to teach something. So I volunteered to teach creative writing. And I aged up with my kids. I actually wrote a whole curriculum about it, like how to do all of it. And when I got to where I was teaching high schoolers, that's when self-publishing really started to become a thing. And they were the ones that were encouraging me to, like, why aren't you, like, submitting your books? Why aren't you actively pursuing this? I mean, why are you encouraging us if you're not doing it for yourself too? It's nerve-wracking, taking that leap and dealing with rejection. And after 19 rejections, I realized I don't handle rejection well.
Yeah.
They were the ones actually that encouraged me to self-publish. My students, they were like, this is a thing, you should check it out. One of my students actually designed my very first cover. I know. So I self-published the first book in 2011, and it sold 30 copies that first year, which was
Victory.
primarily friends and family.
Thank you for your support.
And so my plan was to put something out there to sort of keep my name out there. Like, I even had a name after selling 30 books.
You did
keep my
after
name
one.
out there. I wanted to keep my name out there until I wrote, like, the next big book. So I wrote this little Christmas novella that I was going to put out there for free. And as you know, Amazon was like, no, you're not putting that for free. You have to put a price on it. So I put it out there for 99 cents, and it was The Christmas Cottage, and it sold like 10,000 copies in the first month.
How did you go with that exponential growth? Just going from 30 to 10,000.
I cried a lot. Like, I just cried in disbelief a lot because I just couldn't wrap my brain around it, because that back then, like, that was 2012 when I put that one out. There wasn't Instagram, there wasn't anything out there. There were bloggers who, to really, like, they didn't know me either. So this was primarily off of Facebook, just and they didn't have ads then either. So it was really just, I think, putting the book out at the right time. I hit publish, I think, Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
And so a Christmas book at Christmas time, and it just, lightning in a bottle.
I'm curious then when this became a career for you, like a full-time I'm an author and I have deadlines to meet and I have all of these. When you saw that snowball effect, when did you start noticing that?
So after the Christmas package released, I like that first royalty check. I said to my husband, I'm like, I want to quit my job. And he's like, hey, slow your roll a little bit. Like, it's one book. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And he was right, because I had no idea if I was going to be able to produce that again. You know what I mean? Have that kind of a response to a book. But I was determined. And I mean, I was working full time, and I would just write every spare second of every day that I had. I mean, I'd come home on my lunch break from work and I would write. I was writing like while I'm cooking dinner. I'd sneak off and write, after dinner, that sort of thing. I wrote while at work. And I could say that now because I hated that job, and I don't care if those guys ever found out or not. But I I stayed with that job until 2014. So I literally had, like, from the release of the first book, which was 2011, I had 3 years that I was really just, I wasn't sure if this was going to be a full-time viable career.
Yeah.
And when we saw that I was consistently generating the income that we needed, that think of how like the logic became, if this is what I could produce while I'm working full time, imagine what I could produce if this was my full time job. So we took that leap of faith, and it was hysterical because my last day at work at my office job was the day the box set I was in hit the New York Times. Like, literally, I was out to lunch and got the email that we hit the New York Times, and I was like, that's just a sign telling me that I'm doing the right thing.
Then how did you going full time? Because a lot of authors have difficulty when you go from a full time job to writing on the side and then focusing purely on writing. It can be very difficult to have that routine in place and not just sit on the couch or, go hang with friends, whatever it may be. So, how did you find putting in that process? And what does your 9 to 5 look like now as well?
My schedule is a little like a squirrel in traffic. I have no discipline whatsoever. My husband had said to me he was excited when I was going to do this full time, because for so long I would literally like be sitting like at my desk at home, and all he's seeing is the back of my head because I'm just typing away. So he was like, this is great. You're going to be home writing all day, and then we'll be able to spend time together at night. And it turns out I'm just more creative at night. That's just the way that it was, and it still is to some degree. But there are times that I do have to force myself to sit down and just get the work done, because it is easy to get distracted. And I find that, and I say it with love, I find that friends and family don't always respect the fact that this is a job. Well, you're home, so you can do this. So you're home. Well, we can, let's do that. Or like people, want to come and hang out, or they need you to do stuff for them. And it's always during the day.
Yeah.
So I sometimes I embrace it and I'm like, this is what it is. And other times I have to really make myself be like, absolutely not. I can't do it. But more often than not, my typical day is I am a fairly late riser, and my dog agrees with me on this. She refuses to come downstairs before 9:30 in the morning. So we come down here around 9:30 in the morning, and we both sort of ease into our day. And, I spent a lot of time doing like the marketing stuff during the morning hours, like going into social media, doing that sort of stuff. And after lunch is when I typically like dig into the writing. And my kids are grown, right? Our younger son still lives at home, but like he's 23. It's not like he's interrupting my day or anything like that. But if the characters are talking to me, then I'll stay in here like until midnight if I have to. Just whatever it's, because I'm very, I'm very character driven. Like when they're talking to me, I need to take advantage of that. I know that there are some authors who they're like, I write from like 7 to 10, and I have to make sure that I get my 2,500 words in. If the characters aren't talking, I'm not writing.
There's a
You know?
couple of things that I love about this. A couple of points that I want to go off that is boundaries are never easy to have around family and friends, especially as you said, and I'm glad that you raised this point, is because unfortunately you do have to give tough love sometimes because you can't necessarily expect family or friends to understand either. You can expect your fellow authors to understand because they live it, but the book does still have to be written in some way. So I find it interesting that you say you're not disciplined, but I find setting those boundaries when you have to and put them in place is discipline in itself because it's one of the hardest conversations to have. So credit to you in that. I am curious, in your character driven ways,
Right.
did you have doubt initially when you went full time writing with that kind of not inconsistency, but trusting your process? Because if you're not getting X amount of words every day, I know that we look at a lot of other authors and think, oh, I need to be like that. That's what a real author does or looks like. So, did you judge yourself a little bit initially and just learn to grow into your own process?
I didn't think that what I was doing was different in the beginning. Like I just thought that this was the way that everybody wrote. And it wasn't until I started going to different content writing retreats and seeing everybody else's process that I was like, oh, I'm the odd man out here. Like nobody does it. I went to a retreat once in Lake Tahoe that I got up at like 10 o'clock. I come strolling out in my pajamas, and like everybody had been up at the table and like writing since like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're early risers here. I'm a very fast writer. I like once something is going, I can get into the zone and do it. So if I don't write for a week, that next week I will. Like, and I will write a lot. I've yet to miss a deadline.
Mhm.
So like that, I feel like, and I don't even know why. I don't know why I'm this way. God only knows what I'd be able to accomplish if I actually was like somebody who like was a little more structured. But I think that that's something that becomes a tripping point for authors because they do feel like they have to write the way that somebody else is doing or take somebody else's schedule and that it should be theirs. It has to be what works for you. Otherwise, you're forcing a story that it maybe isn't what you're supposed to be telling. You know what I mean?
It's kind of interesting though, because you are a prolific writer. You've written 80 books in a 12-year career so far. Have you ever struggled with burnout or writer's block or any of those kinds of obstacles?
I have, like, believe it or not, so after the Christmas Cottage was a success in 2012, it like released at the end of 2012. So I challenged myself like a dummy that like I was going to write a book a month. Okay, for 2013, I was going to write like how arrogant of me. I'm going to write a book a month. Okay. Um, have you ever participated in National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo? Okay. Same concept. I'm like, if I could do it in November, why can't I do it every month of the year?
Why not?
So, right. So I only did 10 books that year. And they weren't like, they
Only.
weren't like they weren't like traditionally published length books. So they were like 45 to 55,000 words, which is still a lot of words to write. And I was just like the creativity that it just like it had been unleashed. So I had ideas and I was just going with it and I was getting involved in different projects with other authors and I stayed that way for a really long time. And in 2018, I went to something like 10 different events that year, like traveled all over the country, doing all kinds of stuff. And I got burned out. I was exhausted. So 2019 was a somewhat lazy year for me. I think that I still had a fairly aggressive publishing schedule, but I was home. Like I couldn't do anything beyond that. And then, as you know, in 2020, the whole world shut down. I had I had shoulder surgery in January of 2020, so I got ahead on my books so that because I had no idea what recovery would be like. When it was time to start writing again, I had nothing. I mean, like the world was awful, like everything, like it was very hard to like think of like, let's write about a happy couple, but like just didn't have it in me for a long time. But because I was ahead, I didn't feel it as much. You know, like there wasn't the rush to like get going back as as quickly as I wanted to. But I think that I've slowed down a lot since that point. Like I don't write as much, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I take my time a little more, and like I said, I've written over 80 books. Like there's only so many characters talking in my head at this point.
And that's a huge accomplishment. I want to find out timeline wise, when was Christmas Cottage turned into a Hallmark movie? And even your recent one, I would love to talk about that experience for you. And if you have any advice for fellow authors who, if that's one of their goals or dreams, what advice you have for them?
It's a little bit of a disappointing story.
I'm so excited.
So I'm going to just put it out there like that. I got representation. Finally got myself an agent in 2014. And one of the first things I said to him was, I want to see The Christmas Cottage as a Hallmark movie. And he said, absolutely not. He goes, you don't make a lot of money. It's a very lengthy process. Just no. And every like couple of months, I'd be like, dude, come on, just pitch it. Just pitch it. Like if they say no, they say no. And he refused. And they came to me. Like through my website, a production company came to me and said, we want this book and we want to make it for the Hallmark Channel. And I did like the biggest, I told you so dance. Like, hey, dude, told you. So that was probably end of 2015 that we went to contract with them, and it did not air until 2017. You don't get invited to the set.
Oh.
Don't get to be a part. Essentially, when you sign a contract, you're signing away your rights. And what nobody really explained to me was the depth of how much they could change the story. So when I read that part of the contract and I said, well, what do they mean by changes? It was sort of glossed over like, if she's a blonde in your book, they could make her a brunette. They might change her name, like they might change the name of the town that it's, nothing major. It was a lot. It was a lot different. It's a great movie and I love it. It's not really my book. So the movie did phenomenal. Like we were the number 7 highest viewed movie in like Hallmark history when it aired. So I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. So it aired in December of 2017. In January of 2018, they were like, we want another book from Samantha to make into a movie. So they chose Wedding Season. And it took 5 years for it to actually air. Like you get an option, like they option the right to make the movie. And that option only lasts a year. So they kept re-upping the option every year. And I finally, after like the 4th one, I'm like, look, if they don't make this movie, like I'm kind of done. And my agent said, why? Like you're getting paid whether they make the movie or not. Like they pay you that option fee annually. So nobody else is trying to get this book from you. So why not? And it just so happened then like 2 months later, they were like, okay, we're ready. We're ready to start doing something with this. So again, I didn't get to go. I had no input in anything. And I watched it live with everybody else. So I had no idea, but I was more prepared this time because I was like, okay, like I knew that they changed it a lot the last time. They're going to change it a lot again.
Obviously, making sure that you're prepared that they will make adjustments and changes. Do you think that there is perhaps another production company that you would like to work with, or you've had friends that work with that you feel like you'll be able to be more a part of the process or input or anything like that? Is that something that you're looking forward to as well?
I would love to. When Passion Flicks came out, they presented at the Romantic Times convention back in Atlanta, which was probably around 2017, I think it was. And their pitch was, we're going to keep your books the way that you wrote it, that's the way it's going to be on the screen. And like you have, you could be there. And I have author friends who did have their movies made and that. And I thought like, yeah, I'm going to do that. They tend to pick steamier books than what I write. So I don't think that, as much as I would love to be part of that process, I don't think that that would happen with them. But I have a new agent now that I'm kind of like, okay, can we start pitching now that I've got 2 movies under my belt that were successful? Can we start pitching maybe to like Netflix or Lifetime or Hulu, like whoever? So that's the goal. It's been a hectic couple of like the summertime, there's been a lot of conferences, a lot of book signings, and everybody's been traveling. So I'm hoping like come the fall, we can start having a serious dialogue about where we're going to pitch to next.
If you're not comfortable with answering something, you don't have to. But
Okay.
one thing I did actually want to ask about is your literary agent, because as you were saying before, your initial one was saying no to the Hallmark movie process, etc. So I'm curious as to the questions you would have been like, why? Or, we also hire them because we trust in their instincts and their navigation around a part of the industry that we don't entirely understand at times. And now you have a new agent as well. So I'm kind of curious as to what advice you have for authors who, one, actually, I'd love like pitching, if you have any suggestions for those, but also having multiple agents, because sometimes it's like a marriage, you go into the second one sometimes.
I was very okay. So when I got the first agent, he had approached me. He had reached out to me, and he was with the #1 literary agency in North America. And I was dazzled because I was an indie author who clearly he saw that I was having some success, and he was like, I could help you get a traditional contract. And I was all for it. And he was a young guy. And like, I felt like we were going to start experiencing all of this stuff together because he was new to it and I was new to it. And it was exciting. And as time went on, like the whole thing with not wanting to pitch the movie, that was like the first red flag. The more that we went on, I just felt like he was listening less and less to what I had to say. He did get me my traditional contract with Source Books, and it was an amazing deal. They signed me for 12 new books. They bought my 16 backlist. I mean, it was a nice contract.
Thank you.
Yes. So that redeemed him a little bit. And, but I found that I wasn't a good fit for them and they weren't a good fit for me. With Source Books, we did a total of 32 books together between like the new and the backlist. And when it was time to part ways, we knew it was, we gave it a good run. And I was anxious to go back to being indie because I had things I wanted to do, that they were limiting me. But I kept the agent. The agent was still with me at that point. And then he got caught in an ethics scandal.
Oh.
Yeah. And at that point, I was so ready to start doing new stuff, like because I was breaking free from the traditional publisher and I had all these great plans. And I'm like, no one's going to touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. So I sort of let him go, but stayed within the agency. I just moved over to a different agent. And I think she took me under protest, like a little bit like, yeah, okay, we don't want to lose a client, so I'll take her. And she didn't seem all that interested in doing anything with me. Like we didn't see eye to eye on stuff. She did both my movie deals. Like she handled all of their TV and movie stuff. So she handled all that. She was very nice with all that, but she was not interested in doing anything else with me. And I was like, okay, I could stay here because I didn't know if there was a stigma to changing agents, you know, but I knew that I did not want to, it just wasn't working. Like nothing was going to happen for me if I stayed there. So my advice to anybody would be, if it doesn't feel right to you, if they're not listening to you, you have to remember they are supposed to be working for you as the author. They may know more than we do on certain things. They don't know everything. So they should really be listening more to the authors about what it is that we want to do. So I then hired a new agent and I stayed with her for only a year. She was a great person and she got me some foreign deals and all that, but she was growing her client base and I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I was getting the attention that I needed to grow and do the things that I wanted. And so my current agent, I adore her. I work with her in many other areas, and I feel very positive about where we're going. And I feel like she listens and she's actively doing stuff. But it's scary. It's scary to change because, like I said, you don't know if there's a stigma. You don't know if do agents talk to each other about this sort of stuff. Is somebody saying like, don't work with her, like she's a difficult client?
I think thank you for being transparent. And I think this is a really important conversation to have though, because as you said, a lot of people would be nervous to jump ship just because they don't know the unknown. They don't know if they'll get picked up by somebody. But and a lot of the advice we have on here is in any type of contract or any type of business relationship, if it does not feel right to you, then really consider why you're doing it. And if you're going to be happy with I don't want to say what worst case scenario result will be, but also I'm just like, that's a bit doom and gloom, but really consider your instinctual feeling on it as well. And so I'm glad that you've gone through this process and then you've ended up with somebody that you work really, really well with. And had you not taken those leaps of faith, you would have not ended up there where you're getting the attention that you and your brand needs as well.
Exactly. It's a hard thing because you don't want to jinx yourself. You don't want to make the wrong move. You don't want anybody saying that, talking about you to other agents or editors or anything. And, just never know.
Yeah.
But you have to do what's right for yourself. And even if you love the person representing you, they're not working for you to advance your career, then it's not a good fit.
Yeah. That's really good advice. Thank you. I want to talk about the recent release, Kiss Me, which is the fifth book in the Donovan series. So it's such a beautiful cover. I really like your covers. They're stunning. So tell us, for those who haven't yet read it, tell us a little bit about the series and why they should read it, which they should.
Funny story about the Donovans is I started as somebody who wrote family sagas. I wrote the Montgomerys, I wrote the Shaughnessy's, and I did really well with family sagas. And then I sort of veered away and I wrote like a rock star series. And then it was like a series where it was like all like girlfriends who like, that sort of stuff. And they all did well. It wasn't that any of them didn't perform well. My readers love family saga for me.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna put a family name out there and see what happens. And this series has done phenomenal. So the Donovans live in the fictional town of Laurel Bay on the coast of North Carolina. They have a family pub that's been in the family for generations, and it's 5 siblings. And so book one was Dare Me, which was the youngest sister, and she falls for her older brother's best friend, like sort of a thing. So you had the age gap, you had, like the sneaking around and all that stuff. Book two was the oldest brother, and that was Tempt Me. And that was a grumpy sunshine where he's the grump, he's a former Marine, and he's a little grumpy. And his neighbor next door is like sunshine and unicorns. Everything is great. She over decorates for every holiday, like that it looks like some sort of like something that you'd see at a park. I had a lot of fun with them. Save Me was book three, which was a fake dating romance for the middle daughter who's trying to escape her mother's matchmaking attempts to put her with like every like dork in town. So she decides to fake date the town bad boy, and that works out well for them. Charm Me was the youngest brother. He finds a baby on his doorstep, and it's a girl that he previously dated. She is not our heroine of the story. And he ends up needing the help of like his longtime rival, a family friend who like they've been like rivals since they were 5. So she comes in and helps him. And Save Me is a marriage of convenience for the second oldest brother. And this is his assistant. And so things get a little complicated very quickly. But this series has been a riot because the mother is very domineering, like with her daughters and busybody. And most people have hated her. They've been like, that mother. I grew up in an Irish Catholic neighborhood where there were mothers like this. So I thought it was funny. But some people were like, she was a little too over the top for them.
What has been the most surprising thing for you in this industry? Something that you just weren't expecting?
I, the thing that comes to mind all the time, and my husband and I have this conversation at least once a week, is what we found with traditional publishers was that they want to buy your book. They don't necessarily want to sell your book. Like they do nothing to help you. Like it's all still on the author. Like we still have to do all the marketing, all the promoting, all of the grunt work to promote our books. And that was a little disappointing to me because I thought when you had the backing of a publisher that they did all that. And it was pretty much like, nope, they don't want to do sales. They don't want to give you graphics. It's just sort of like, all right, guess I'm on my own. Yeah. So that really, and I've heard that from several authors with different publishing houses. So I know it wasn't just my experience that seems to be something that happens a lot.
Yeah, and I can agree. I have heard that a lot too. So let's tackle the beast of marketing because it is so hard. A lot of us didn't come into this with a business mind or sense. So what is the marketing tactic? Yeah, same. What is the market? I sort of naively dawdled into this and then I was like, oh shit. So what is the advice you have? What are the marketing tactics that you have found that have worked for you?
In the very beginning, I mean, I did everything on Facebook. If there was like, if people were like having like release parties, you networked like crazy and got onto everybody's page, and you just went any place that anybody would allow you to share your book. That's where I shared it. I have several very good friends who do have that business and marketing mind that they could look at any like Amazon ads, the BookBub ads, and they just like, this is what I do for a CPU, and this is what I do. And I like, it's Greek to me. It's absolutely Greek to me. When I hit a point in the business where I'm like, I can't do this on my own. I honestly, I can't. And I would frustrate myself that I knew that I needed help. So to me, biggest advice I would give would be like, don't let that be the hill that you die on, like, because if you don't have a marketing brain, you don't have a marketing brain, and that's not a crime, you know? So I have an assistant who knows how to work all those numbers and how to do what's an A/B test on Amazon ads, but she does. You know, she knows how to do the Facebook ads and get it so that you're getting the right clicks per thing and which ads perform better. I don't understand it, but I've always done well with Facebook ads. Like that has been a go-to for me, like from the beginning. Facebook is my friend. And I think it's because what I write, I'm not trying to get a super sexy anything out there. Like there's nothing inappropriate. There's not, or that anybody could deem inappropriate. Correction. You know, I'm a little bit more like Facebook friendly. Amazon ads are like hit and miss. Depends on the book. Like we've not been consistent, and that's something I hear a lot from people, that like either they can't get it to work for them at all, or it's just not, it'll work fine on one book, but the next release it doesn't. So I've tried hiring like traditional PR firms who like work on like getting you seen more on like Google and stuff like that. I didn't see anything with that. I spent a lot of money on that to learn that that did not do anything for me. But I do have a literary PR firm who like they handle all of my book releases and, you know, Valentine PR. They are the best, and they handle getting my book out where it needs to be, and they're doing stuff on Instagram and TikTok for me because I'm too old to figure out TikTok. I'm too old. I don't understand it. I don't want to look at myself on video like that. Like I don't. So you have to know where your strengths are and where they're not.
I think that's important too, and exactly that, and finding out your strength. And it takes a long time to realize that too, because especially at the start, we don't have necessarily a big budget, or we don't know what we're doing, and we're learning these things as we go. And I always like to make the point too that starting in 2011, I started publishing in 2014. It was a very different time to what it is now. So being able to pivot and adapt to what the environment and what the industry is now is very different. So it's okay to need help. I mean, you're running a business, it's a lot. And if you feel like you're wasting too much time on something and you're not getting the results that you want, I would highly recommend considering delegating. And if you don't know where to start, ask author friends, who do you use for your Facebook ads? Who do you use for this? There are plenty of courses and resources. Are there any that you've ever done, like any courses or any Facebook groups or podcasts that you've listened to that have really helped your growth in your time?
You know what? I did Anchors Con, which, you know, was an online conference that I got a lot of great info from. I did Romance Author Mastermind, but like that was a very intensive marketing thing where most of that I did not understand. Like I almost wish that I had paid for it and let my assistant take the courses, because I think she would have understood everything much better than I did. Because I sent her notes and she's like, I don't even understand what you wrote here. She's like, none of this makes sense. So, you know, in the beginning, I did so much reading. Like back in 2011, 2012, I was reading every book possible. You know, I'm part of Club Indie on Facebook, which is a private group for authors. Marie Force she also had a group that was Author Support Network. That was a Facebook group where you could just go and you could ask the questions like, hey, what do I do for this? Like, does anybody have a recommendation for that? And it could be whether you're looking for like a PA, whether you're looking for a cover designer, or whether like you're trying to figure out this whole ad thing, and like what's the best way to do it. Did take a course on TikTok, and I cried, and I realized that just needs to not be, it's not need to be in my vocabulary right now. But it's just you have to do the research. A lot of people, like once, I don't know, I think around 20, between 2010 and 2013, when like indie publishing was really taking off, we were all learning by the seat of our pants. I mean, like, there was just a lot of trial and error. And when people were seeing how successful we were becoming, they just wanted to piggyback a little bit and be like, hey, tell me how you did it. You know what? I could tell you some, but like, you have to figure out what works for you, you know? So lately I haven't done too much. And I know that I have books piled up all over my office that I should be reading on marketing strategy and that, but I just haven't. Like, like this is the book that like everybody's been telling me to read.
I love that.
Have you read it?
I've read it. I love it. That seven figure fiction. It's not a big book, which I like as well. It's, you can read it quick morning, but also I met Theodora as well recently in one of the book signings, and she is also the sweetest. So love, definitely get that book. Definitely read it. Goodness,
Yes,
Samantha. I'm kidding.
it's on my desk. Doesn't that count? So yeah, I'm not so good with the follow through.
So are you a plotter or a pantser?
Oh, I'm a total pantser.
I knew it.
Total, total pantser. Anytime that I have tried to sit down and plot on my own, I go off script almost immediately. And the weird thing is, I co-wrote a series with Noelle Adams back in like, I think it was 2014 that we did the first one. And we plotted that thing to death. Like, we got together for a weekend and we like chapter by chapter, like I was writing the hero, she's writing the heroine. We had it all so that it was like a no-brainer by the time we started to write. And I was like, I should do this on my own for my own books. No, it never works out. I normally have like a 2 to 3 paragraph outline and I just go from there.
Amazing. I love hearing about everyone's different process and what works for them.
What do you do? How
What
do
do
you
I
do
do?
it?
I do a skeleton. So I'm a pantser predominantly, but I will go, okay, point A, point B, and we have to get to here. And then I'll just let my characters do whatever they need to get in there. Because I know now in my process that it doesn't matter how much, if I even attempted to plot, it's not gonna happen. So I trust the process.
I don't know if you've ever watched some of these videos where like, particularly like when they're writing teams and like they've got a wall of sticky notes and like whiteboards and that they plot every breath of it. And I am just dazzled by that. And yet that makes me twitch. If somebody said that was how I had to do it, I don't think I'd ever write again.
I think one of my favorite examples to give is for, say, example, Token Huntress is one of my 6 book fantasy romance series. It was only ever meant to be a 3 book series. It ended up turning into a 6. And there were things that I was discovering in book 4 and 5 and going, oh, that's why that character always did that. That's why, oh, you're the bad person. This stuff I never knew at the start. So I think it's also when you are a pantser, I think it's exciting in that sense too, because you just think, who knew? And readers will come up and go, that was so clever. I did not expect that twist. And you're like, me too.
I've had the same editor for my indie stuff for probably the last 5 years. And I write what the characters are telling me to write. And sometimes I don't delve too deeply into the why. I just know that this is what they're supposed to be doing. And every time she sends my book back, she's like, I think it was so clever that you incorporated like this message. And I'm like, all right. Sometimes I don't even realize that it's there. But other people see it. And
Deep
like
down,
that's
you're
like,
like, am I a genius?
or insane. I'm beginning to feel like maybe there's a level of insanity there.
What would you say so far in your 12-year publishing career, your greatest challenge and your greatest accomplishment has been so far?
My greatest challenge is not flattering. My challenge is that I'm very much like the editing process to me. Like if somebody said that I had to like listen to a beta reader, I I can't. Like I don't use them anymore because it messes with me so badly that it makes me second guess everything. And I know that there are plenty of authors who will not publish a book without having a beta reader go through it. And I can't. The few times that I've tried, I end up changing things so that my voice is gone. And so I don't know whether I think it's my own stubbornness that I just refuse to find the balance that I'm just like, nope, we're just not going to do that. So, you know, that's that. And my greatest accomplishment was that the other thing? Those. These really like I can't even like it still boggles my mind. Like, holy cow. There are people that don't ever get to say that, like, you know, yeah, they're not exactly like my book, but how many people get to say my book was made into a Hallmark movie? You know,
Right? And there's going to be a third time.
that's
Manifesting. What then is this is one of my favorite questions to ask. What is the big goal? What is the dream that you're chasing for your career? The bigger the better.
bigger the better. I want more movies. I want a major motion picture. I don't think that like I don't want something like in the scope of like a Harry Potter or Twilight, like nothing like that, but I would like I want to walk a red carpet and be a little like E.L. James, like where you're just like, these are my books, and now look at where they're at. I really, that's the dream. That's the biggest dream. My mom wants to walk the red carpet with me at some point.
Well, I will happily wait for my invite in the mail when the screening
Yes.
happens. Let's go hard. I love that. Um, I have speed dating with an author. So I lit a candle, I created an ambience, but
Yes.
success. But basically, what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
When my nephew graduated from the Marines from boot camp, we got to go to where he did his training, and there was a museum to walk through and all that. And I was walking with my dad and my son and a whole group of people, and I was a little bit like, "Everybody, keep up, keep up!" And I was not paying attention, and I was walking up the stairs, and one of these big boxes on the wall with like the fire alarm and everything, and I just slammed into that like I tripped. It was and they all just looked at me and like snickered, like I really got hurt. It was just
Family, isn't it, as well?
like everyone's like, maybe stop focusing on us and watch where you're walking so that you don't like. I mean, how did you miss this giant box on the wall? Don't know.
What are the 3 words that best describe you?
Loud, sarcastic, and hysterical.
I love that. Those are really fun. Okay, cool. Fun descriptive words. What
Yes.
is then the song that best describes you?
Living on a prayer.
Oh, good song.
Yes, I'm an
You can
80s girl. So
you can only choose one. Who has been your favorite character to write and why?
favorite character was Dylan from One More Promise. He was like a fallen rock star. His book opens up where he's like getting out of rehab, and he's totally got to like fix his image, make things up to his band members for like being like the screw up all this time, and watching him navigate like his heroine was like the publicist who got put in charge of sort of like babysitting him, and just watching him navigate like the real world and doing the things that would have never done before, like just being human and not being in rock star mode all the time. He was just a lot of fun, and I felt like his redemption was just like the biggest and the best.
Yeah, I love that. What
Yeah.
is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
I am ridiculously obsessed with Disney World and Disney parks, and I help my friends plan their vacations. Okay,
I love that. I went to Disney World for the first time only about 6 weeks ago. So I get it. Okay. I get it now.
you do, right?
Yes.
I I have just like when I tell people I'm a Disney fanatic, it's not Disney movies. I love the Disney parks. Like I could go there all the time and just never be bored. My husband is like, we've been there already. Like, can't we go someplace else? And like, then I'll just go without you. Because yes, later.
Samantha, I have had so much fun today. What do we need to be on the lookout for? And most importantly, where do we find you?
You can find me everywhere. On Facebook, it's Samantha Chase Fan Club. On Instagram, it's Samantha Chase Romance. My website is chasingromance.com, and it's chasing-romance.com. What's coming up next to me is more Donovans. Like even after this one, we have a new branch of the family coming. This family is set in Laurel Bay. The next branch of the family is in Sweetbriar Ridge. And that book, Loving You, is book one in that series, coming in September. Then we're going back to the Montgomerys for Christmas. Like, I'm so excited to go back and revisit that family. So, and we're going to spin off that and do like a next generation for them.
Oh,
So I've got everything scheduled after the end of 2024. So, I know. Can I super secret show you something?
please. I love super secrets.
I know. So you can keep it in here. You don't have to edit it out. But the first book in the Montgomery spinoff is called Irresistible Love. And that is the cover. And I just had to show it somewhere because I was dying because I love it so much.
This is so, it's such a nice cover. No wonder you were dying to show it to somebody.
My cover.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And when does that one come out? September, did you
That
say?
one isn't going to come out until January.
You tease.
I know. That's why everybody's like, you can't show it yet. It doesn't come out until January, and you have other cover reveals before that. And I'm like, I really want to show somebody.
You're like, I'm my own independent woman. I can do what I want.
It's my business, babies.
I love it. Well, I'm gonna love you and leave you, but who knows? We might see how you're going over the next couple of years and possibly get you back on.
I would love that because this has been awesome.
That's what I like to hear. Well, thank you so much again, Samantha, and have a good one, guys. Bye.